Boom. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. You are watching Sports Talk Live from the Southeast Iowa Union. I am your co-host, Andy Krutzinger. I don't know why I'm so close to the mic. We were pretending that we were going to come on as the NPR, and we were going to go, welcome to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk. I'm Andy Krutzinger. And so I started doing it. I started doing it as a joke, but I forgot I was doing it. But this is my co-host, Hunter Moeller. How's it going, Hunter?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. And of course, we got Nick Stephens on the ones and twos. Yep. We were just talking about his long snapping days for the Mount Pleasant Panthers. So
he's thinking about being a long snapping coach.
Yeah, that's right. He's going to go into coaching. We were already talking about it. So if you haven't watched this before, this is our 6th episode. So basically, I
expect you to get that right every time.
Yep. So 6. Lucky 7 next week. We should do it like anniversaries. Like, what's the 6th anniversary? I wonder. Silver. That's too late now.
Yep.
But we talk about a little high school and college sports. College, Iowa Wesleyan anyway. Football, cross country, volleyball, whatever. It's the fall, so you know what to expect. And we had another busy day of high school sports on Friday. And Hunter here was at a pretty big game. Washington's homecoming against Grinnell. It didn't quite turn out like the Demons were hoping.
Yeah, as you said, it didn't turn out how they would like. Washington falls in this one. It's their 3rd loss in a row after that. That great start to the season. Mm-hmm. They lose to Grinnell 28-21. Both teams kind of came out in this one, marched right down the field, 7-7 right out the gate in the first 4 minutes of the game there. But then Washington kind of took control in this one, at least in the first part of the game there. They have a really talented sophomore quarterback, Brady Kaufman. He answered for Grinnell with back-to-back 21-yard touchdown passes to put them up 14. It was looking like Grinnell was going to head into the locker room with a 21-7 lead, but Washington defense stepped up big, forced the Tigers to punt, and it was sloppy, wet, pretty much every game around the area here, and the ball slipped through the punter's hands, and Washington got on it, and that drive ended up ending with a touchdown for Washington, and they went into the locker room only down 7 instead of that 14-point deficit. Mm-hmm. So, that was a real positive for them coming out, coming out of the locker room at halftime. And then, it just kind of continued. Both teams tried to get going there, and then probably the biggest moment of the game for Washington. Neither team's offense could kind of get clicking early on, but Grinnell forced Grinnell to punt again, kind of in the same area as that. It was the slip through the hands, but Jude Carter. You got to mention him because he forced this play. He came in as a sub. Grinnell was punting. He came. The punter lost the ball, picked it up, and rolled out right. Trying to get some separation from the kick. And Jude Carter came up, blocked the punt. Ball rolled back in the end zone. He falls on it. Touchdown. They tie it at 21. And at that point, it felt like the momentum. Was. We were like, now it's starting to, feel Washington's going to get going. They're going to take control of this. But, we kind of continued. Both offenses continued to struggle. They punted back and forth. Conditions had a lot to do with that. But in the end, with under 2 minutes left, the Tigers marched down the field. And with about a minute to go in the game, they punched it in with, I mentioned Kaufman. He had two huge pass plays on that last drive, and they were able to punch it in with about 50-some, just under a minute to go. And, Washington can never answer back to tie the game. There were a couple big penalties that got them a little closer, but Ethan Patterson rolled out left, and they brought the blitz, and he couldn't get the ball off, and that kind of ended the game there with zeros on the clock. So tough loss for Washington. Yeah, and they had a couple of chances because of a taunting penalty there to pull off a stunner. But it was interesting enough. We'll talk about the game I was physically at in a second. But I was on my way back from Keosauqua, and both Washington and Fairfield were tied at this point. And so I have my presets to the Washington, Fairfield, Mount Pleasant radio station so I could listen to what was going on. And so at the exact same time as all this was going on in Washington, Fairfield was in its own dogfight. Actually, Keokuk's homecoming, I do believe, and it was a wacky game. So it was 3-3 at halftime, a pair of field goals for each team. And then in the second half, both teams scored once and missed the PAT both times. So Keokuk put one up in the third quarter, missed the point after, and then went to the fourth quarter. It was 9-3 Keokuk. Nice fun. I like that. I like those low scoring
football games, and Tate Allen punched one in for Fairfield, missed the extra point, and so both teams had a couple chances in the fourth. It was 9-9, and it eventually went into overtime. Keokuk gets it first. They score. They miss the extra point again, and so Fairfield in 2 plays. Fairfield has lost a lot of running backs, and so they just punched it forward with old Tate Allen, quarterback, a couple times in a row, and he scored, I believe, on 2nd and 5 to tie it up, and then Drew Toohill came out and broke the streak of missed point afters and had the game-winning extra point. So a big road win for Fairfield. This is the first week of district play for 3A. So, and we said that this 3A district was going to be close, and obviously it was, because Washington and Fairfield both went down to the wire. That's something that we'll see a lot of this year in that district. Maybe Solon's a different animal, but it should be a fun competitive season in this district.
No, and as you mentioned, what a win for Fairfield. Obviously, it's kind of, they played in close games, it seems like, all season long, besides, their win, against Mount Pleasant early on. But,
yeah,
you play those close games over and over again, you start to figure out ways to win. And obviously, the extra points, you need to hit your extra points, I guess. But that's what Fairfield did in the end, and they pull out a big win, and that should kind of give them some confidence with the district play. So
yeah, Tate Allen carried the ball 19 times for 135 and 2 touchdowns. So a little bit of the Tim Tebow offense, having your quarterback just run through people. So worked for him there, and they've got West Burlington Notre Dame this week, so it'll be another grinder probably. And then also on the radio, but not quite as tight, was Mount Pleasant played at Fort Madison. It was pretty close through a half. Fort Madison was definitely favored, 5-0, I believe, 4-0, 5-0, and what is it, 12-0 at halftime, and then Mount Pleasant just couldn't get the offense going.
Yeah, we talked about the Mount Pleasant, defense was really kind of, that was kind of the area that they needed to work on the most, because they were putting points on the board and they were moving the ball. They just couldn't hold teams back, and it seemed like in that first half there, obviously, we weren't at the game, but you said you listened to it a little bit, and obviously it was only 12-0 at half, and Fort Madison's now ranked in some polls.
Yeah, they are.
So, you look at it that way, obviously it ended up being 46-0 in favor of Fort Madison. Obviously Mount Pleasant was doing something that was working in that first half. So
yeah, and Mount Pleasant's pretty beat up after that West Burlington Notre Dame game. I think last week I talked about how big West Burlington Notre Dame was. So and Mount Pleasant's a smaller team, but the defense really only gave up. There was a safety in the first quarter, so the defense only gave up 10 points in the whole first half. So yeah, totally flipped it. Now they just have to figure out a way to take that first half defense and combine it with the offense from the first few games, and maybe they'll be able to pull it off. But that was another loss from Mount Pleasant. They are 0-5, and Fort Madison moved to 5-0. Yep. So any Bloodhound fans decided to jump in, even though they're not technically a Southeast Iowa Union team. They're at the top of their game right now. I was at one of our small school games in a rivalry and a homecoming game myself. Van Buren County played against Cardinal. It was a grinder of a game, as wet as it was everywhere else. I almost think it might have rained a little bit more in Keosauqua. It just seemed like the whole game it was coming down a little bit. It was wet. It was a lot of running the ball. Van Buren County plays a lot of speed to the outside, and Jackson Manning throws some deep passes to Anthony Duncan. So they have passing as part of their offense, and I think they struggled a little bit to kind of figure out. I think head coach Brian Johnson told the Van Buren County Register afterwards that the weatherman lied this week, because I think they thought they were going to be able to throw the ball a little bit. But instead, Sam Worth, their running back, their big power running back, ran for 3 touchdowns, almost had the Bundy, the 4 touchdowns in one game. It was they were up. They were leading Cardinal 22-16, which was the final score, 22-16 Van Buren County. They were leading them, and he punched in with a couple minutes left, and it was called back on a personal foul, 15 yards. So then Cardinal made a big stop, and they had a chance. They were down 22-16, and Lucas Fett from Van Buren County was intercepted. Cardinal quarterback Tatum Telfer to seal that one, but I thought Cardinal played. They're beaten up. Carson Kinney was hurt. He's their starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. It was a road game against a rival who's playing at homecoming. The weather was bad. They're shorthanded. But they came out and gave them a good game. But Van Buren County won that. I think that was the first time since 2017, 18, something like that Van Buren County. Let me check my facts here.
I remember you said the record was like 210 to 7 or something.
Yeah, the last 3 or 4 times that Cardinal and Van Buren had played, Cardinal had outscored them something like 200 and if I was good at quick math, I'd do it here, but it's like 208 to like 16 or whatever. It was 2017, the last time Van Buren County beat Cardinal. So that's the seniors. And it's a very senior-led Van Buren County team. Those seniors got their first win and over rival Cardinal, and that's pretty cool for them. Tatum Telfer did run for one, pass for one. So I thought Cardinal for an 0-5 team, they're in every single game, and they just can't quite pull it out. So.
You're looking at this one, obviously, you mentioned the senior-led Van Buren team. I mean, you can take positives for both teams. Obviously, the Van Buren senior-led team, their time's now come. Now you're looking at Cardinal, who lost a bunch of kids that have been there. And, we talked about their dominance, against Van Buren. But now you're kind of seeing those kids having to go through, and it's kind of like, just the process of high school sports pretty much. And now, eventually Cardinals, time will come and they'll be, a dominating team. So it's kind of nice to see that. I mean, just obviously Cardinals gotten better each game throughout the season. So it's kind of nice to see that, I guess, process of just high school sports in general, and especially football. Yeah,
I said Telfer is in at quarterback right now. He's a sophomore. Nobody that ran the ball or caught a pass was a senior, so all those kids will be back next year probably. So maybe Cardinals schedule homecoming against Van Buren County next year. It'll be like run it back. You never know. But I have no idea how the schedule works out. But we had some more games. Of course, we had a ton of games because everyone played like usual. So Hunter, why don't you get us into the old roundup here?
Yeah, probably the biggest upset around the state, I would say. We'll start off with right here. We got Sigourney Keota 15, number one. Well, previously number. We'll see what happens with the rankings now, but previously number one ranked Pella Christian 13. The Cobras get it done in the snake pit.
Yep.
The Cobra defense allowed just 6 points in the first half, and then Sigourney led 9-6 at the break, and then 15-6 after 3 quarters. And then Pella Christian scored one late, but ran out of time, couldn't get her done. And, Sigourney Keota comes out with a huge upset. Cole Clarahan, he's been dominant on the ground for them all season. Only had 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Though Sawyer Stout had 88 yards, and Isaac Bruns ran for 75 yards. So, I mean, no bigger upset than this one right here.
That's right. I believe Sigourney Keota is now probably the favorite in that district to win it after that 0-2 start. Waco New London, you were at this a little bit, but Waco 43-14 over New London. I thought this was going to be one of their hardest tests. Another homecoming victory. So you got a double homecoming Friday. I forgot you stopped by Waco before you went to Washington, right?
Yeah. And I will say, the first time seeing Waco in person, man, they got big kids everywhere on that team. So, they keep rolling, keep the number 2 ranking. I mean, it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere, and they've kind of hit a part of their schedule where they're really favored. So nothing but green grass ahead for the Warriors now.
Yeah, and speaking of green grass, Simeon Reichenbach ran for 156 and 2 touchdowns, and also has caught a touchdown. And then I'll skip over here to the Winfield Union game. Speaking of crazy stat lines, Winfield Union beat Lone Tree 54-14. Lone Tree, I believe, came into that one 3-0 in the district. They were very good. They're towards the top, and Winfield Mount Union starting to rise to the top again. Cam Buffington, 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had his 3rd interception of the season, and it was his 3rd interception return for a touchdown of the season. It's 3 for 3 every single time he picks one off.
He's scoring touchdowns everywhere.
Yeah, he is. It doesn't matter. He had that kick return that I saw. So Winfield Mount Union, big right there, and then they're getting a little momentum.
Yeah, moving right along, one of the other, more, teams that are kind of on fire still is Columbus picks up another win, still undefeated. They down Pekin 53-28, but Pekin gave them kind of quite the scare in this one. The Panthers put together a 22-point second quarter. The Panthers led 22-20, led the Wildcats 22-20 at halftime. Second half was a different story. Kate Amagon got going. 302 yards from Amagon in this one. 6 touchdowns. I believe, if I remember seeing right, that's a school record.
Yeah, and then he scored once on defense, right?
Yep, 81. He picked up the fumble, took her 81 yards to the house. Wow. So, I mean, this kid's doing it everywhere. And then Tristan Miller, he's kind of, those two have been, right side by side. He had 105 yards and a touchdown. So,
that's right.
I mean, I don't know what else to say about Columbus.
Would you say that Columbus is a wagon?
Yeah.
Wagon alert.
Yeah.
You know where they should eat if they're a wagon? Wagon wheel bar to go in Washington. Mid-Prairie 51-0 over Central Lee, and they've got a big game here coming up. So they needed to kind of wipe a team out, and that's what they did. 50 burger on there, and they held Central Lee to 88 yards. Colin Miller ran for 3 touchdowns there. I'm sure the starters weren't in very long because that was a dominant performance from Mid-Prairie, who is red hot right now at the right time.
Yeah, Mid-Prairie's got a huge matchup this week, and after I can't remember who. Oh, they lost to Iowa City Regina. Tough loss there. But other than that, that was. I mean, they competed in that one, and Regina's a tough squad. But Mid Prairie, the Golden Hawks, been playing pretty well as of late.
Yeah, that's right. And they got another big one at Williamsburg this week. So there you go. Now we got one more.
Yep, one more. We got probably team given the toughest schedule in the state. We like to say Highland. Highland falls 14-55 to Alburnett. Just another tough one for the Huskies. Obviously, Alburnett's been one of the premier teams in that, or is one of the premier teams in that district and in that class. The Huskies outscored them 14-7 in the second half, but the Pirates did a lot of damage there in that first. So tough loss for Highland, but we always talk about they lost so much, but they just keep competing, getting better every week. So that's all. What more can you ask?
Yeah, that's true. And having a front-loaded schedule like that, at least then maybe the little green grass, as you said earlier, ahead of them with teams that are a little more beatable coming up. But yeah, we got some big games this weekend. Fairfield's homecoming. Happy homecoming, Fairfield Trojans against West Burlington Notre Dame. Washington at Solon. Mount Pleasant at home against Liberty. Those are two tough games for those guys. Yep. We got some other ones. Of course, Mid Prairie at Williamsburg. Sigourney Kyoto plays Cardinal. Sigourney Kyoto's got a chance to keep it going there. So some exciting stuff. And the playoff picture starting to unravel a little bit. But we still got plenty of stuff to go, and we also had one college game, as we always do. Yep. Iowa Wesleyan jumped into, this isn't technically conference play now. Iowa Wesleyan played up at Dakota State, and for any UMAC Upper Midwest Athletic Conference experts, South Dakota State, sorry, not South Dakota State, that's a Division I school. What did I say there? Who did I just say that they were playing? Dakota State. It's just Dakota State, not South Dakota State. I had a little brain freeze there. Dakota State is in the UMAC, and they beat Iowa Wesleyan 24-7, but it was a warm-up game. It didn't have the asterisk in it that says this is a conference game. They played Dakota State later in that game. But Iowa Wesleyan, you mentioned Mount Pleasant, how it was the defense that had to figure something out. Iowa Wesleyan had been on fire offensively going into this weekend, and they took the long trip up there to Dakota State, and they only scored once, a 24-7 loss. Defense played pretty well, but Iowa Wesleyan going into conference play this week against Mayville State, and guess what? Happy homecoming, Iowa Wesleyan Tigers. So we got some homecoming games coming up for us this weekend.
And the homecoming games are always exciting. I feel like I don't know if they don't really, I guess you could say they hold a little more weight. I don't know. Yeah. Just like the school spirit kind of aspect of it. It's always nice to be at a homecoming game.
It's special. Did you have trouble with parking at Waco and Washington?
Not too bad. Washington gets a little tough because it's, there's no parking area.
It's city
just
parking.
you're going to park by somebody's house and walk. But
Van Buren County is going through some construction around the school. So with parking, I was on a downhill like this, and I forgot to put my parking brake on. So I was lucky that I came back to my car and it wasn't rolling into somebody's house. So we're going to take a little commercial break, and we're going to be back and talk some volleyball, some cross country, and some other stuff. So stick with us 30 seconds. Welcome back to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk. I'm Andy Kretzinger.
PR edition.
Yep, in PR edition. Every week's a PR edition because I was a PR major in high school and college. Fun fact. We are here on Washington Live Facebook, Washington Live YouTube, Mount Pleasant Live Facebook, Fairfield Live Facebook, and you can catch us on Spotify as well. So we are all over the place. Yeah. Pretty soon we'll be we're everywhere. Pretty soon we'll be on channel 2 or 4 on your dial, probably, right?
Oh man,
that'd
be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, playing at Buffalo Wild Wings, playing on the big screen at Times Square Arena, not Times Square Arena, the Times Square, the big screen, But for right now we're on YouTube.
Big time.
We're going big time. But right now we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. So it was a big day in volleyball. It was the last Southeast Conference day of the year before the big tournament. And I was at Fairfield last night.
Big rivalry there.
Yeah, for a little Trojans versus Demons, Fairfield and Washington. And let me tell you, through the first set, it looked like Washington might be spoiling senior night for the Fairfield Trojans, but that's not how it went down. After Washington took the first set 25-21. Fairfield dominated from then on. Fairfield caught fire in the second. 25-11, and it just seemed like the atmosphere and the good times for the Trojans kept rolling and never stopped after that. 25-15 in the third, 25-13 in the fourth. So Maggie and Macy Rayburn, they're twin hitters up there, combined for 20 kills for those guys. So I thought a big difference in the game was in the second set. There were two big serve streaks. Cody Engel had one, and Rowan Terrell had the other, and those just kind of took the life out of Washington a little bit. And it's kind of the tale of two teams, Fairfield's seniors and juniors, and they've kind of risen to the top a little bit. They're 4-1 now in the SEC, and it's them and Burlington at the top. And then for Washington, they swept Burlington, Burlington's only SEC loss at the beginning of the year. Since then, they're 0-4 in conference play. They've won at least one set every single time. They just cannot seem to pull off those close ones. They lost 5 sets against Keokuk and Mount Pleasant, 4 sets Fort Madison and Fairfield.
And they've been playing with everybody. That's the thing.
They have.
If we look at any team in this conference, it's really, it's kind of a toss-up of who's going to come out, who's going to play their best on what night,
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the conference, so the conference tournament's a little different in the Southeast Conference. Mm-hmm. So they play an entire round robin schedule in 2 days. I believe it's the 4th and the 11th. They're a week apart. The first, luckily for Washington, the first round is in Washington, so a little advantage there. Yep. And then the second round is in Fort Madison. And what happens with Fairfield and Burlington being 4-1 is it's set up to where the Trojans will play the Greyhounds at the end. There's one, so they play all the games at the same time, but at the end there's one game that gets played where everybody else is done. That will be Burlington and Fairfield. So the idea is that's kind of the conference championship, but it has not worked out the last 2 years. 2 years ago, Mount Pleasant won it, and they were watching. I think they needed Fort Madison to lose, so they were watching from the stands. They watched themselves win the SEC title because Fort Madison dropped the last one. And then last year, Mount Pleasant had it all wrapped up before that last game, and Fairfield upset Mount Pleasant in Fairfield and kind of ruined the vibe, but Mount Pleasant was still conference champions. So going to that, we'll have Burlington and Fairfield will be 4-1 each. Fort Madison and Mount Pleasant, spoiler alert for about 1 minute when Hunter talks, they'll both be 2-3. Mm-hmm. And that means Keokuk and, am I right? Keokuk and Washington 1-4.
So Keokuk is also 2-3.
You're right.
If the stats if the stats are updated on
the math is getting to me. Yeah,
here, but
it works out.
So it's a tie race.
I'll tell you what, the same amount of wins total is equal to the same amount of losses.
There you go.
All right. But while I was doing that, Hunter, you were in Mount Pleasant, and they had a similar start to Washington and a similar ending, right?
Yep. Hosting Fort Madison for senior night. The Bloodhounds came in and spoiled senior night for the Panthers. It started out, Mount Pleasant showed a lot of poise in that first set, ended up taking that first set 25-22. The kind of the story of the night is they would get down early and they would fight back, but the difference was that Fort Madison pulled it out late in the next 3. Mount Pleasant loses 3-1. Like I said, they win that first set 25-22. Lose the second 25-22, and then lose the third 26-24, and then the final fourth set 25-21. So a tough night for Mount Pleasant in that regard. But in that second set, for example, they got down 4-9. In the first set, they were down 4-9. They come back. They ended up taking the lead 19-17, and then went 19-18, and Mount Pleasant was ahead. Ended up being tied 22-22 late, but Fort Madison answered with 3 straight to win that, and that was kind of the same story throughout the night. In the third set, Mount Pleasant held a 21-17 lead. Fort Madison ends up coming back. They also held a 23-20 lead. Fort Madison comes back and makes it 23-23, and then kind of same story. They kind of outscore them there 3-1 there to pull that one out. And then in the fourth set, relatively the same thing, although Mount Pleasant never led in this one. They got down 5-1, came back, tied at 5-5, but Fort Madison ends up pulling that one out too. So, really it could have went Mount Pleasant's way, just Fort Madison had the edge last night. So second win of the season for Fort Madison, and they're now 2-13. Mount Pleasant goes to 5-19. So, and like you mentioned, we got quite the race down there. Mount Pleasant was sitting in third, and now they're 2-3 in the conference. Keokuk 2-3, and Fort Madison 2-3. So
there you go. We're
going to see how that third place is going to play out, third, fourth, fifth place. So
yeah, well, and And Fort Madison did the exact same thing to Washington. Washington beat them in the first set, so maybe that's just Fort Madison's thing. They hang around, and then they get you in the second couple.
Well, Fort
sets.
Madison started 0-11, and now they've had some big wins for their conference standings, and just you know what I mean. So I mean, don't sleep on Fort Madison, I guess is what I'm saying. So,
and it's all it's all wiped out now. Burlington and Fairfield were the 4-1 teams in the regular season. That does not add up to the conference thing. It's 0-0 in the next couple of weeks. And as Fairfield co-coach Vicky Rebling last night after the game said, if it's a 2-night tournament, so if you have one bad night out of the two, then it's devastation.
Right.
Especially for a team that. And I think that every single one of the SEC teams should think that they have a chance to win the championship, because none of them have been blown out by everybody and by anybody, really.
Like this one, the match last night, even your match, these games are being decided by less than 3 points, every time. So it's like, that tells you right there it can swing either way. So
you got to get the hot hand. Well, we had some more volleyball last night. Some small schools were in action. How'd it go?
Yeah, I'll just run through this. I mean, we didn't have a lot going on. Waco played 3 games because they were part of a quad up there, and they traveled up to Lone Tree. They downed Keota 21. These are only played in 2 sets, so they downed Keota 21-7. 21-13. Then they swept all the competition. I guess I forgot to say that. I always say that they swept everyone. And Waco's been playing really well. So they beat Lone Tree host 21-10 in both sets. And then they beat Cedar Valley Christian 21-17, 21-5. So I believe I'd have to double check, but Waco only has 2 losses. And, that came from, I believe, 12th ranked Holy Trinity and I believe New London. And they're 11th ranked. So it might have switched those up a little bit there with the rankings. It's 11 or 12 around there, but and they played close with those 2 teams. So
this weekend at the Super Conference tournament,
right? So I mean, Waco's playing really good as of late, and they continue it last night. But then continuing on here. Cardinal loses to Knoxville. It's been a tough season for Cardinal since switching over to the conference. They got swept by Knoxville 25-12, 25-15, and 25-4. And the last game of the night. Van Buren took on, like I mentioned, number 12 Holy Trinity. Tough one for the Warriors in this one. The Crusaders win at 25-9, 25-19, and 25-16. So not a lot of action last night, but some big games.
The Crusaders have run a crusade on our teams a little bit this week, because they beat
New London.
They beat New London in the Super Conference
third place match. Yep.
And then before that pool play, not that it mattered because both went on, but they beat Winfield, right? So Winfield, Mount Union, Waco, and New London were all in that Super Conference tournament this weekend at SEC. New London got 4th. The other 2 got knocked out in the first round, but every single one of those games was a 3-setter, right? I mean, every single one.
Winfield took the first one from New London. I'd have to double check the final score of that one, but it's pretty handily. I think it was 25-15.
Yep.
Waco stole one from Holy Trinity. So, I mean, you look at the Southeast Conference volleyball, and really anything can happen in that with those top 2 teams. I mean, those top tier teams, obviously, Notre Dame and West Burlington meet, and they've been dominant all season long. So, but the other teams have been playing them close. So that's going to be an interesting one to see too.
And Notre Dame did beat West Burlington, but so the brackets, the postseason brackets, should be coming out next week. And it's usually the first week of October. And West Burlington's in 2A, our 1A teams will have, our 2A teams will have to worry about it, but our 1A teams don't have to worry about that. So where do you put? You got to figure out where you put Notre Dame,
and Holy Trinity, New London,
Mount Union, Waco, New London. There are plenty of teams, so we'll see.
That's the sad part is you want them all to be able to have a clear path to state, but it's like someone's going to have to end up playing each other at some point. So.
Yeah, I really wonder if that's going to be interesting to see what they do with that, because that's a common problem they have with our small schools around here. They're good at volleyball, and they have to break them up a little bit. I think it's usually there's 1 or 2 lucky teams that get out of the area, because I don't think that you want to be in the local bracket. I think you'd probably rather either go west or north a little bit. But we'll see. Hopefully, either way, it's gonna be one of those nights where we're sitting somewhere for a regional championship, and it's gonna be New London, Holy Trinity, or Waco and Notre Dame, or Winfield, New London, or something like that. And it'll be an epic clash. So it'll be pretty crazy. So. Yeah, volleyball-wise, that's all we got. But there was some cross country last night. Washington has traveled the area. They've beaten everybody at their own cross country meets. So Washington got to host their own last night, and Spoiler alert, they did it again. Another double win for the Demons. Washington was actually, so this was the first time I believe that all 6 of the Southeast Conference teams were together. And Washington got a battle against Fort Madison, who I think that's the clear 1 and 2, and especially in boys. In boys, Washington scored 38 for first, Fort Madison 45, so a 7-point difference. And it was mostly Southeast Conference teams besides Waco and Highland, so it was a pretty good kind of way to see. I guess Keokuk. Oh no, yeah, Keokuk was there. So it was kind of a way to see where you're standing, and looks like the Washington boys are going to be favored there. And then the Washington girls, 25 points, first place. Fort Madison was second with 77. That's a 52-point victory.
Man.
Yeah, and if you want to know how they did it, you could probably guess that they've stacked the top 15, 16.
Yep.
The boys' side, Mike Reese won again. He just wins. He was right there in that seat, right? He was here for the coaches show last week.
We've seen a huge improvement from him, too.
That's right.
Crazy.
That's right. Not only with his running, but also his YouTube appearances. Because if you go back to the Southeast Iowa Union, the Washington coaches show, Micah was here. Talking some Washington sports the other day, so that's it. That's in our Washington Live YouTube video list. Ben Carthy from Mount Pleasant got second in the boys. He's been I wouldn't say right behind Micah because I think it was about a minute difference, but he's been right there in the top 5. And then Jude Dykstra for Mount Pleasant was 4th, so they had 2 in the top 4. But the Washington boys just have a ton. They just kind of stack the field, and it's the same with the girls and the boys. Real quick for the girls, Washington had 9 in the top 16, including Iris Dahl, the freshman, got 2nd. Quincy Griffiths got 3rd for Washington. Lauren Horak got 5th. So, as I said, 9 in the top 16. That's pretty ridiculous.
A lot of young talent too there too.
Yes. Out of the top 10, 5 freshmen. This is all together, which includes Mount Pleasant freshman. Emma Welcher as well. 9 freshmen, out of the top 10, 5 freshmen, 4 sophomores, and 1 senior in the top 10. So this is a group that'll battle, and that's not even, this is mostly a big school meet, so it didn't have kids from the mid prairies and the Pecans of the world that were out there. But right now, Fort Madison's Avery Rump has been the star on the girls, and we'll see if Iris Dahl can catch her by the end of the year, or Quincy Griffiths can catch her by the end of the year and do that. But team wise, Washington is dominating, and they're young anyway, so they don't have a lot of seniors. They'll probably be the favorites for years to come.
Sounds like we're going to be seeing a lot of good running for like you said, mentioned years to come around here, even in track too. So
that'll of course translate to track. And by the way, after Micah Reese, Tyler Alderton, who earned his first player interview of his running career from us anyway, in Mount Pleasant last week from me, he finished 5th. Andrew Roos was 6th. And then Drew Horak was 12th. They again, that's 3 in the top 6 for Washington boys. So Washington cross country is all over it right now.
Yep.
So anyway, that's what we got for cross country, and pretty soon we'll be getting into the postseason. Obviously, football has to get totally done before those brackets are out, but volleyball brackets should be out hopefully next week. They should release them right before Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk Live. I don't think they will. I think it'll be later in the week.
Yeah.
And then we'll get some sites and stuff for cross country, but we're getting it's feeling a little chilly. We're in jackets. It's not classy sweatshirt today, but you're in a sweatshirt.
Yeah, I had the windows open the last couple nights here because it was pretty nice out, and woke up this morning, decided I needed to shut them a little bit. I woke up, I was freezing.
It's pretty cold out, so that's getting close to postseason. What's tough to do when it's cold out is if you have a 4-year-old girl who only wants to wear shorts and skirts all the time, and you're responsible for getting her to preschool on time, because that's been my battle all week.
And they don't want to wear the sweatshirt you got.
That's right. Just a peek into my personal life. As a preschool dad, I had my first late to preschool the other day because the hoodie that I picked out from my daughter, which was a Gap hoodie, very fashionable, was not one of her cute ones. And that bumped us back. So a little dealing with that.
Yeah.
A little bit that. This morning was okay though.
Yeah,
got her there just in time.
That's good.
I have trouble dressing myself.
Made up for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. It's tough. Twice the time. You got any exciting plans this weekend?
Well, it's not a night game mechanic, so it's going to be tough when it gets done before Michigan. But I said if well, it's just going to be a tough one. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
We both, Hunter and I both are entered in a drawing that we put on at work for Hawkeye tickets. So we're both sweating that out. Could happen any minute. Text. Almost always we get a text that says, well, no, every single time we get a text that says you both lose.
Yep.
So we'll see. We could probably fudge our media passes and say we're covering the game, but we don't agree with those.
We would never
kind
do
of
that.
acts. Yeah, that's
We
right.
would
you
never.
out there who do that kind of stuff. You got to pick for the games. Iowa plays Michigan, and Iowa State plays Kansas.
Right?
Yeah, so both probably underdogs.
You know, I'm
Iowa
an Iowa fan, so I'll say Iowa over Michigan just because I don't care about Michigan.
Yeah.
So I'll pick that, and then in basketball, I'm a Kansas fan. So, and
What if Kansas plays Iowa?
Iowa because I graduated
There
from
you go.
there.
There you go.
In football though,
Yeah, so you're picking Kansas over Iowa State this week?
actually I'd probably choose Iowa at any point in time, but
Yeah.
that'd be tough. But yeah, I'm choosing Kansas over Iowa State. They've been playing real well, and I think their time's due in football with the last couple of years they've had over there.
Yeah.
So Jayhawks, we'll get something back on.
Yep, I'm feeling pretty negative today, so I'm going to say Iowa and Iowa State both go down this weekend. Nick, thumbs up if they're going to win. Thumbs down, big thumbs down from Nick Steffens.
If it was a night game, would you say Iowa up in the upset?
Night game McKinnick.
Field goal as time expires to win it.
That's right. Night game McKinnick, Iowa every day.
For sure.
They pretty much owned Michigan except in the Big Ten Championship last year, so
Right.
I'm excited. Either way, hopefully one of us will hopefully be there because we'll win the drawing, and the other one will be watching for about a half before we go Iowa Wesleyan. Oh, by the way, Iowa Wesleyan plays Mayville State this weekend for home.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
I mentioned that earlier. So I don't think we got any, nope. You got any dental appointments at Delta Dental this week?
I don't, but if you need it, get there.
Sometimes, yeah, that's right. I think my teeth are perfect, obviously, but I might as well just have to go check me out. Tell me my teeth are perfect.
And you come back and give the honest opinion.
Yeah, and then get an honest opinion. And so thank you to our sponsors, obviously Caparado. I forgot I was gonna have a Caparado Russian team of the year of the week like I did last week with Columbus, but I think I shoehorned in a wagon wheel instead, so I mixed up my sponsor shoehorns. But again, if you're watching us here, you're watching on Washington Live's YouTube, Washington Live's Facebook, Mount Pleasant Live's Facebook, Fairfield's Live Facebook, or you are checking us out on Spotify. We thank you for being with us. We hope that you tell everyone to kind of check us out, word of mouth, and kind of get everyone link it up. Click this link.
We love people watching, so
That's right. Send them the link and say, if you don't click this link in 7 days, something bad's going to happen. Because people do it out of superstition, and at least we get the views.
right.
So
I
there we
better
go.
click on it.
Yeah, all right. So we'll be back next week, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and we will wish you guys a good week. Have a good one.
See ya.